The message came from space on a cold Tuesday morning. At first, it sounded like broken static, meaningless noise from the stars. Most scientists ignored it. Space was full of strange sounds, dying stars, black holes, drifting signals from old satellites. But inside the lunar listening station, one woman stopped breathing. Dr. Emma Ross leaned closer to her screen, her brown eyes reflecting green lights from the monitors. The sound wasn't random. She had been listening to space for 10 years. She knew the difference between chaos and pattern. This was a pattern. And patterns meant intelligence. She played the signal again. Short bursts, long pauses, repeating sequences of numbers. It almost sounded like someone trying to speak through an ancient radio filled with static. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the filters. When the noise cleared, she heard something else, rhythm. Like a heartbeat echoing through the void. "Computer, isolate signal band 6, she said softly. The AI obeyed, pulling the sound apart. The noise became sharper, clearer. And then, she saw it. A visual map appeared, points of light arranged in a formation that matched no known constellation. But to Emma it looked familiar. Too familiar. She opened a file from Earth's star database and overlaid it. Her heart skipped a beat. It matched. The map pointed straight to a region of space near the Perseus Arm, more than 12,000 light-years away. Someone, something, out there was sending a message to Earth. She hit the intercom. "Control, this is Dr. Ross in Bay 2. You need to see this. Now." Within minutes, 3 other scientists arrived, pale-faced, half-awake, clutching coffee. Emma played the signal again. The room fell silent. No one spoke for almost a full minute. Could it be natural? One asked. Emma shook her head slowly. No. The sequence repeats every 21 seconds, but each cycle adds new data. It's evolving. They all stared at her. Evolving. That meant someone was on the other end, adjusting, changing, trying to communicate. For 3 days and nights, the lunar listening station never slept. They fed the signal through decryption programs, pattern analyzers, and linguistic models. At first, nothing made sense. Then one of Emma's assistants, a young technician named Luis, noticed something. "The numbers, they form coordinates," he whispered. Emma ran the data through the system. The coordinates formed a rough star map, leading to 12 dots of light. 12 worlds. Now it was clear. This wasn't a greeting. It was a warning. The next sequence came through, more broken than before, full of static and distortion. But the images embedded inside the signal told the story. Ruined cities. Fires. Giant shadows moving across the ground. The aliens, whoever they were dying. Emma leaned forward, her face pale. "Dear God, they're asking for help." Across the stars, in a dark control room buried under the Earth's surface, General Tom Baker listened to the recording. The military had been informed within hours, the first confirmed alien contact in human history. But this wasn't how anyone imagined it would happen. The signal wasn't a message of friendship. It was a cry of terror. Emma stood beside him, exhausted but determined, explaining what she and her team had discovered. "They call themselves the Cathvar," she said, pointing to translated symbols. "A peaceful race spread across 12 planets. They're traders, scientists, not soldiers." General Baker's jaw tightened. "And who's attacking them?" Emma tapped another file, distorted footage of massive figures covered in dark armor. "The Dramor," she said. "Warriors. Conquerors. They destroy every world they find. The Cathvar are next." The room fell into heavy silence. Screens flickered, showing alien cities burning. Ships falling from the sky. Beings running in terror. One of the advisors whispered, "Why us? Why send this to Earth?" Emma's voice was soft. "They detected our old radio signals. They thought we could help." A few people in the room almost laughed, not because it was funny but because of the cruel irony. The peaceful Cathvar had called for help, from the deadliest planet in the known galaxy. Back on the moon, Emma stared out of the observation window. The Earth hung in the distance, blue, beautiful, fragile. She thought of the Cathvar worlds, maybe once as calm and bright as Earth, now burning under alien fire. She whispered to herself, if they only knew who they just called. The message continued for another 12 hours before it faded into silence. But something in the signal changed before it ended. The last transmission was different. A single word repeated over and over in alien language, one that Emma had already translated. "Please." And then nothing. The next morning, the United Nations met in emergency session. For the first time in history, every major power on Earth agreed instantly. Humanity would respond. But not everyone understood what that meant. To the Cathvar, help meant protection. To the humans, it meant war. General Baker looked out across the war room, voice steady but cold. Prepare Task Force Orion. We're going to send a message back. Someone asked quietly, "What message, sir?" Baker turned to the glowing star map. "Tell them," he said, "that their cry for help was heard, and that Earth is coming." And somewhere light years away in the ashes of a dying world, a Cathvar technician looked up at the stars, unaware that the monsters of a death world had just begun to move. The stars above Earth burned quietly that night. But on the ground, the world was awake. Every radar station, observatory, and government agency had received the same signal, proof of intelligent life. But this was no celebration. It wasn't a "we come in peace" message. It was a desperate cry for survival. At the Pentagon, the tension felt heavy enough to crush the air. General Tom Baker stood at the head of the long steel table. Around him sat leaders from every major nation: China, the US, Russia, India, Japan, the European Union. On the giant screen behind them, alien images looped. Burning cities, falling towers, broken bodies. Emma Ross sat quietly near the back, her eyes tired but alert. She had become the link between worlds, the human who first heard the call. Baker's voice broke the silence. "So let's be clear," he said, his tone steady. "These Cathvar, they're peaceful. Traitors. Diplomats. And they're being wiped out by the Dramor." Emma nodded. "Yes, sir. The Dramor see weakness as disease. They conquer or destroy. No middle ground." One of the defense ministers leaned forward. "And they asked us to help?" Emma looked down at the table. "They picked up Earth's transmissions, music, speeches, radio signals from decades ago. They think we're advanced enough to fight." A quiet laugh echoed from one corner of the room. It wasn't joy, it was disbelief. General Baker didn't smile. "They don't know what they just called." He pressed a button. The screen changed, showing a planet report. Harsh storms, dense atmosphere, predators, volcanic belts, deadly bacteria. Earth. According to their data, Baker said, Earth is listed as a Class 12 death world, the highest danger level where life can exist. The Cathvar can't even survive our gravity or our microbes. But they don't know what made us human. The room grew still. The memory of survival. Emma remembered what she had read in the Cathvar database. On their worlds, the worst predator was the size of a small cat. Their oceans were calm. Their skies were soft. No plagues. No wars for thousands of years. And she thought of Earth, of the endless struggle written in every human bone. They had survived ice ages, famine, and fire. They had fought wars that lasted generations. They had built weapons that could destroy continents, and still feared the night. Humans were not peaceful creatures. They were survivors, forged by chaos itself. The choice. Baker looked around the table. "The question is simple," he said. "Do we stay silent or do we answer?" The British Prime Minister leaned back. "If we ignore it, the aliens die. If we answer, we risk war with an unknown empire across the galaxy." Baker's tone turned colder. "War has never scared us before." A Russian general spoke next. "Can we even reach them? We don't have faster-than-light travel." Emma turned toward him. "We don't, but the Cathvar do. Their message contained designs for a drive that bends space. They offered it as trade. That changed everything." Every scientist in the room straightened. Every general leaned forward. Humanity had dreamed of the stars for centuries. Now someone was offering them the map. But Baker wasn't thinking about exploration. He was thinking about revenge. "They showed us videos," he said quietly. "Children being loaded onto slave ships. Cities burned to ash. The Dramor think fear is power." He stared at the image of a Cathvar child on the screen, small, gray-skinned, wide-eyed. "They're about to learn what fear really means." Operation Retribution. The next morning, Earth's skies filled with movement. Every major space agency, every hidden military project, every orbital launch pad came alive. The world's nations agreed on something no one believed possible: unity. They called it Operation Retribution. Emma joined the science division of the task force. She worked day and night decoding Cathvar technology, helping human engineers adapt the warp drive. The first ship to use it would be named Vigilant Dawn. When she first saw it under construction, she felt both pride and dread. The ship wasn't sleek or elegant like in the movies. It was brutal, a weapon made from steel, rage, and survival. On its hull, soldiers had painted a simple phrase: "We heard your cry." The first contact. 3 months later, Vigilant Dawn hovered in orbit. Inside the command deck, General Baker stood beside Emma, watching the Earth shrink behind them. "Do you ever think about what we're doing?" she asked quietly. Baker didn't answer for a moment. "Every day. But when you see what they did to those cities, it stops being philosophy." The engines ignited. Space folded. And humanity took its first step into the dark. The jump lasted seconds. When the stars reappeared, they were no longer near Earth, they were above a dead world. Ash covered the surface. Fire still burned in the night. "This was one of the Cathvar homeworlds," Emma whispered. Baker stared at the screens. "Not anymore." The scanners picked up faint signals underground, survivors. Thousands of them. Emma's hands shook. "We have to help them." Baker nodded. "We will. But first we send a message." The warning. A secure frequency was opened on every Dramor channel. Baker's voice echoed across the void, steady, human, and cold. "This is General Tom Baker of Earth. Stop your war. Leave the Cathvar worlds. This is your only warning." For several long minutes there was no reply. Then static filled the speakers, followed by a deep, guttural laugh. The Dramor war chief appeared on the screen, massive, armored, eyes like burning coals. "You are insects," he growled. "You dare command us? We are the Dramor Empire. We take what we want." He leaned closer, sneering. "Run back to your little planet, human. Before we add your bones to our trophies." The feed cut. No one spoke. Emma looked at Baker, her voice barely a whisper. "He doesn't believe us." Baker's reply was quiet but sharp. "Then we'll make him believe." The decision. The War Council aboard Vigilant Dawn gathered. Some argued for retreat. Others for diplomacy. But Baker only said one thing. "They asked for our help. We'll give it to them. Our way." He turned to his officers. "Deploy the fleet. Lock coordinates on the nearest Dramor garrison. And prepare to show them what comes from a death world." The engines roared again. Human ships, forged from the will of a savage world, entered alien skies for the first time. Down below, the survivors of the Cathvar looked up, watching new light streak across the heavens. They did not know who had come. They only knew one thing: the sky itself had changed color. And somewhere deep inside the enemy's empire, the Dramor would soon learn a truth that would echo through the galaxy. When you call for help from a death world, help always comes. But it never comes gently. The alien sun rose weakly over the ruins of Cathvar Prime. The once beautiful capital city lay in dust and ash. Twisted towers stood like black bones against a red sky. The Vigilant Dawn hovered above the surface, a dark, angular ship reflecting the light of the dying star. Below, scanners detected life. Not many, a few thousand, maybe less. General Tom Baker watched the readings on his console. "Begin descent," he ordered. As the landing thrusters fired, clouds of ash swirled across the horizon. For the first time in human history, soldiers from Earth stepped onto alien soil. The ruins of a dying world. Dr. Emma Ross walked beside the landing team, her white suit covered in gray dust. The air was toxic, thin and filled with particles from the burning cities. She moved carefully through the rubble, scanning for any signs of survivors. Her device beeped softly. "Over here," she shouted. The soldiers rushed forward, lifting a heavy piece of collapsed wall. Beneath it lay three small alien figures, weak, trembling, with pale gray skin and large black eyes. One of them blinked at Emma, afraid but alive. It tried to speak, but the words came out broken and strange. Emma knelt, switching on her translator device. "Don't be afraid," she said gently. "We're here to help." The alien stared at her for a long time. Then, slowly, it reached out a shaking hand and touched her arm. "Humans came," the translator whispered. Emma smiled, but her eyes filled with tears. "Yes," she said. "We came." The hidden city. Hours later, the team discovered an entrance beneath the ruins, a metal door leading deep underground. Inside, dim lights flickered along endless tunnels. Hundreds of Cathvar hid there, tired, thin, afraid. When they saw the humans, many backed away in fear. They had never seen beings like this, tall, strong, faces hidden behind helmets, armor reflecting cold light. The air filled with whispers in their soft alien language. One older Cathvar stepped forward, his movements slow but dignified. He was taller than the others and wore a cloak of woven silver fibers. "I am Vareth," he said through the translator. "Elder of what remains." He looked at Emma, then at General Baker. "You heard our call." Baker nodded. "We did. And we intend to stop the ones who did this to you." Vareth studied the general for a moment, as if measuring his soul. "You are from Earth?" he asked. "Yes." Vareth hesitated. "The death world." Emma frowned. You know that term? The elder nodded. Our scientists have spoken of it. A world where everything fights to live. We thought no beings could rise from such chaos. He lowered his eyes. And yet here you are. Understanding the Deathworlders. In the following days the humans worked side by side with the Cathvar. Doctors treated the wounded, engineers repaired their broken machines and soldiers guarded the tunnels. The Cathvar watched them, studying the humans' discipline, their calm under pressure, their strange mix of kindness and ruthlessness. Emma noticed it too. Human soldiers would share food and water, joke softly with frightened children, and then in the same breath train for combat with eyes that burned cold. The Cathvar had never seen such duality before. To them violence was something primitive. But to humans it was simply part of survival. One young Cathvar, a technician named Leary, followed Emma everywhere. She was curious, asking questions about Earth, about the oceans, the storms, the sky. Is it true, Leary asked one evening, that your world kills your own people with wind and water? Emma smiled faintly. Sometimes. But we learn to fight back. That's how we became what we are. Leary tilted her head. Death shaped you. Emma looked out at the alien sunset. Yes. And now it's going to protect you. The broken signal. While the humans rebuilt power systems in the underground city, they intercepted a transmission, weak but clear. A Dramor fleet was moving toward another Cathvar colony. Emma rushed to the command post. General, if we move fast, we can intercept them before they reach the planet. Baker studied the map. The Dramor ships were large, far larger than anything humans had ever faced. He looked at the Cathvar elder. Do you have any forces left? Vareth shook his head slowly. A few cargo ships. No weapons. Baker turned to his officers. Then we'll have to show them what Earth can do. The alliance begins. The underground hangar roared with activity. Human engineers worked side by side with Cathvar scientists, installing plasma cannons and missile pods onto alien cargo ships. It wasn't elegant, but it would work. Emma stood beside Leary watching the transformation. What do you call this? The young alien asked. Emma smiled. Improvisation. Before launch, Vareth approached General Baker. Your people fight for us, strangers, he said quietly. Why? Baker's voice was calm but firm. Because we remember what it's like to face extinction. And because monsters like the Dramor don't stop. Someone has to stop them. The elder bowed deeply. Then may the stars remember this day, the day the Deathworlders became our allies. The rising storm. When the fleet launched, the ground shook. Old Cathvar ships, reborn with human firepower, rose into the sky. The vigilant dawn led the formation, engines burning blue against the darkness. From orbit, the Cathvar survivors watched in silence. For the first time in years they felt something they thought was gone forever. Hope. Emma sat in the co-pilot seat, checking the scanners. Beside her, General Baker stared ahead, his expression unreadable. They wanted help, he said. We're going to give them justice. Emma looked out the window. Stars glittered like shards of glass. Somewhere out there the Dramor were coming, confident, unstoppable. She whispered softly, they have no idea what's coming for them. Cliffhanger ending. Hours later, deep in the darkness of space, human radar picked up movement. 20 Dramor warships. Massive, armored, hungry for conquest. The first alien voice echoed through the comms. Identify yourselves. General Baker leaned forward. This is Earth, he said coldly. And we're not here to talk. The transmission cut. Missile bays opened. Engines roared. The void lit up with fire. The stars were silent, too silent. Inside the human flagship Vigilant Dawn, every light on the control board glowed red. 20 enemy warships were moving toward them in formation, a wall of black metal and fury. General Tom Baker stood at the command center, arms folded, eyes cold. Around him, human and Cathvar officers worked together, their voices tight with fear and determination. Distance? Baker asked. 30,000 kilometers and closing, replied Lieutenant Hayes. Emma Ross watched from the science console, her heart pounding. This was no simulation. This was humanity's first real war in the stars. The enemy approaches. The Dramor fleet appeared on the view screen, long, curved ships covered in living armor that pulsed with strange blue veins. Each one was the size of a city, their weapons glowing faintly in the darkness. Emma whispered, how can anything that big even move? Hayes muttered, doesn't matter. We'll make them stop. Baker turned to his crew. Remember this day. No one's ever fought these things before. But they bleed like everything else. A quiet laugh rippled through the humans, Not from humor but from defiance. First contact. The Dramor transmission came again, harsh and distorted. This system is under Dramor control. Identify yourselves or be destroyed. Baker replied calmly, we are from Earth. You attacked our allies. You killed civilians. We're here to return the favor. Silence. Then a cruel metallic voice answered. Earth. The death world. We thought your kind were myths. Baker smiled faintly. You're about to find out we're not. The battle begins. The first shots came without warning. Plasma beams cut across space, tearing through one of the converted Cathvar ships. It exploded in a burst of white fire. The entire Vigilant Dawn shook from the shockwave. Ship 3 is gone, shouted an officer. Baker slammed his fist against the console. Return fire. All batteries, now. Human railguns lit the darkness. Slugs of metal screamed across the void, faster than thought. The first hit smashed into a Dramor cruiser, punching a hole clean through its armor. The alien ship shuddered, blue fire spilling out like blood. The humans cheered. Direct hit. Hayes yelled. They're vulnerable. Baker's voice was calm again. Then keep hitting them. Fire and fury. For the next 10 minutes, the battle became chaos. The void filled with explosions and debris, human missiles streaked through black space, Dramor plasma arced like lightning. The Vigilant Dawn took heavy fire, shields burning red-hot. Emma felt the deck tremble beneath her feet as she struggled to stabilize the ship's systems. Life support failing in Section C, someone shouted. Patch it. Baker barked. Outside the viewport, a Dramor ship split in half, its engines going supernova. The light was blinding. Emma stared at it, unable to look away. This was humanity's first victory, but it didn't feel like triumph. It felt like survival. A Deathworld strategy. Baker studied the tactical display. The Dramor still outnumbered them 2-1. We can't win by trading blows, he muttered. Then he smiled, cold, dangerous. Send drones, he ordered. Pattern Epsilon. The Cathvar technician beside him frowned. Pattern what? Emma whispered, realizing what he meant. Oh no, that's a nuclear spread. Dozens of small drones launched from the Vigilant Dawn, each carrying a warhead. They didn't aim directly at the enemy, they surrounded them. Seconds later, the stars flashed white. The radiation storm blinded every sensor, every camera. Inside the chaos, the humans moved. Now, Baker shouted. Strike hard. The human fleet dove through the firestorm, engines roaring, weapons blazing. Missiles tore through damaged shields, railguns ripped apart exposed hulls. When the light faded, 6 Dramor ships were gone. The rest were retreating. The cost of victory. Inside the control room, cheers erupted. Emma leaned against her console, exhausted but smiling. We did it, she whispered. Baker didn't smile. He was staring at the casualty reports. 2 Cathvar ships lost. 40 human lives gone. He exhaled slowly. We won the battle, he said softly. But not the war. Emma nodded. You think they'll come back? Baker looked out the window at the burning wrecks drifting in the dark. They always do. The aftermath. Back on Cathvar Prime, the surviving ships landed to refuel and repair. When the humans stepped out, crowds of Cathvar surrounded them, silent at first, then whispering words of awe. Leary, the young Cathvar technician, ran to Emma and hugged her tightly. You came back, she said, tears in her dark eyes. Emma smiled. Of course. We don't leave our friends behind. Vareth, the elder, approached General Baker. You stood against them and lived, he said quietly. No one has ever done that. Baker shook his head. We didn't stand against them. We hunted them. The elder looked at him, a mix of respect and fear in his eyes. Perhaps the stories were true, he whispered. Perhaps Deathworlders are not monsters, but the galaxy's shield. The message. Later that night, Emma sat alone in the communications chamber, scanning the stars. She replayed the last Dramor transmission, the one sent just before they retreated. It wasn't words. It was coordinates. She frowned. General, she called softly. You need to see this. Baker entered, looking weary. What is it? Emma pointed to the glowing star map. They weren't calling for help. They were calling for reinforcements. Baker's face hardened. How many? Emma hesitated. Hundreds. The silence in the room felt heavy, suffocating. Baker finally spoke, his voice quiet but steady. Then we'll be ready. The final line. Outside, the night sky shimmered with wreckage and smoke. The stars seemed to flicker, as if watching. In that moment, the galaxy changed forever. For the first time, a death world had gone to war among the stars. And it had won. But in the darkness beyond, something vast was stirring. The Dramor Empire knew Earth's name now. And they were coming. The stars had been quiet for 3 weeks. After the great battle near Cathvar Prime, human ships orbited the alien world like silent guardians. The Cathvar had begun to rebuild their broken cities. Factories hummed again. Children played under real sunlight for the first time in years. But everyone felt it, the stillness before the storm. Dr. Emma Ross watched from the control tower, her reflection floating against the glass. She could see the vigilant dawn drifting in orbit, covered in battle scars. It looked powerful, but it also looked tired. General Tom Baker stood beside her, staring at the same view. His face was lined with exhaustion, but his eyes were still sharp. "They'll come back," he said quietly. Emma nodded. "You saw the signal too?" He didn't answer, he didn't have to. Both of them had seen the coordinates the Dramor sent before retreating. They weren't retreating in fear. They were preparing for revenge. Whispers of war. Across the Cathvar cities, human engineers worked side by side with alien scientists. They traded knowledge, plasma shields for steel armor, Cathvar reactors for human missile systems. Leary, the young Cathvar technician, had become Emma's assistant. She was brilliant and quick, but her hands still trembled when she spoke of the Dramor. "They will come in greater numbers," Leary said softly. "They always do. The last time they lost a battle, they erased 3 planets to make an example." Emma tried to sound calm. "We'll be ready this time." But deep down she wasn't sure. Humanity's first victory had been hard-earned and costly. The message from the void. That night, an emergency alarm cut through the quiet skies. Inside the command center, screens flickered to life. Lines of alien code raced across them. "Unknown transmission detected," Hayes reported. It's coming from deep space. From the outer edge of the system." Emma ran the data through translation software. Her heart sank. "It's Dramor," she whispered. "They're here." Baker stepped forward. "How many ships?" The answer came seconds later, flashing across the screen in cold white text. 342 warships. Multiple carriers. Planetary strike force. The room went silent. Even the hum of machines seemed to fade. Leary covered her mouth, trembling. That's an entire armada." Baker's voice cut through the fear like steel. "Alert the fleet. Wake every ship. This is no longer defense. This is survival." The sky burns. Hours later, the stars turned red. From orbit, Emma watched as massive shapes appeared on the edge of the system, shadows blotting out the starlight. The Dramor armada stretched farther than her eyes could see. Their leader, Warchief Gra, stood aboard his flagship, a vessel so large it had its own atmosphere. His voice thundered across all open channels. "Deathworlders of Earth. You dared to challenge the Dramor Empire. You killed our warriors. You will now see what true war is." Baker answered calmly, his voice echoing across space. "You started this. We're just finishing it." Then the sky exploded. Thousands of plasma bolts and railgun rounds crossed space at once. The blackness of the void became a storm of light and death. The human response. Inside the vigilant dawn, Baker gave his orders without hesitation. Squadrons 2 and 3 flank left. Shield frequencies rotate every 10 seconds. Emma, status on Cathvar defenses. Emma's hands flew over the console. Shields at 72%. Power drain is massive. I need 10 more minutes. You've got 5, Baker replied. Outside, human fighters darted between enemy ships like hornets, firing missiles that burned blue against the darkness. Dramor ships were larger and stronger, but they were slow. Humanity used speed, cunning, and fury. Each time a human pilot fell, another took their place. The Cathvar ships fought too, but they weren't made for this kind of war. Their bright silver vessels glowed with energy, firing elegant beams of light that seemed too beautiful for battle. Emma saw one of them break apart, glowing fragments scattering across the void. Her throat tightened. "No." Baker's voice came through, steady and cold. "Focus, Doctor. You can cry later. Right now, people are dying." The turning point. After 6 hours, half the human fleet was gone. The Cathvar defenses were collapsing. The Dramor were pushing closer to the planet. Emma looked at the tactical map. It was a sea of red dots. "We can't hold them," she whispered. Baker didn't answer. He was staring at something else, a line of data on the screen. "Emma," he said slowly, "what's the status of the fusion cores on the mining satellites?" She blinked. "They're unstable. We never finished stabilizing them." Baker smiled faintly. Perfect. Emma realized what he was thinking. You can't. That would destroy half the system. He met her eyes. If we don't, the Dramor will destroy everything anyway. He tapped the comms. All ships, pull back behind the Cathvar moon. Prepare for blind jump in 3 minutes. Emma hesitated only a second, then started rerouting the satellites. The Deathworld Gambit. The satellites began to overload, glowing brighter and brighter. Each one carried enough fusion fuel to vaporize a city. There were 12 of them. As the human fleet retreated, the Dramor pursued, confident, unstoppable. And then, one by one, the satellites exploded. A chain reaction tore through space like a second sun being born. Radiation, debris, and light consumed the void. Dramor ships vanished in seconds, crushed, melted, erased. Even the vigilant dawn shook violently from the shockwave. When the light finally faded, nothing remained where the Dramor fleet had been. Only silence. After the fire, the communication screens flickered back to life. Static. Smoke. Then cheers. They're gone. Hayes shouted. Every last one of them. Emma sat back, tears streaming down her face. We did it. But Baker didn't celebrate. He looked at the ruined stars, the burning fragments drifting like ghosts. How many ships did we lose? He asked quietly. Too many, Hayes replied. Baker nodded slowly. Then it's not a victory. It's a warning. The line that echoed. Later, when the smoke cleared, Emma stood outside the base and looked up at the sky. The stars were faint behind the dust. Leary stood beside her. Is it over? She asked. Emma shook her head. No. This was just one fleet. The young Cathvar frowned. Then why did they stop? Emma looked into the night, her voice almost a whisper. Because they learned something today. Deathworlders don't fight for conquest. They fight for those who cry for help. Behind her, the vigilant dawn rose from the surface, engines glowing like fire. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, new eyes were watching, curious, fearful, wondering who these humans were. The galaxy was quiet again. Too quiet. Weeks passed after the Battle of Cathvar Prime. The human fleet drifted through the stars, repairing their ships and counting their dead. The Dramor Armada was gone, wiped out in one massive explosion. But General Tom Baker knew better. He had seen the kind of empire the Dramor built. They would never stop. Not after losing hundreds of ships. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. Signs in the dark. Inside the vigilant dawn, Dr. Emma Ross sat alone in the dim glow of her console. She was decoding new transmissions coming from deep space. They were faint, scattered, but familiar. She played one and a chill ran through her. It was Dramor. But not an attack message this time. New fleets forming. Deathworld target identified. Earth will burn. Her breath caught. General, they're not coming for Cathvar anymore. They're coming for us. Baker appeared beside her within seconds. He stared at the message, his jaw tightening. Then we take the fight to them, he said. Emma blinked. You mean? He nodded. We don't wait for them to reach Earth. We strike first. The Alliance of the Broken. The next weeks were a storm of preparation. Humans sent distress calls to every alien world that had ever suffered under Dramor rule. Most were afraid to answer. Some didn't believe humans could win again. But then one by one they came. Ships from 7 species, traders, rebels, and survivors, arrived at Cathvar Prime. The council chamber filled with strange voices and faces, but one thing was clear in every eye. They all had lost someone to the Dramor. Vareth, the Cathvar elder, spoke softly. The galaxy is full of fear. But fear can unite as much as it divides. The Dramor believe death is their weapon. They have not seen what happens when Deathworlders lead the fight. Baker stood at the center of the table. His voice was calm but heavy. We're not here to conquer. We're here to end this. Once and for all. The march to war. The United Fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human ships bristled with metal and firepower. Cathvar cruisers glowed with energy shields. Smaller vessels from other races darted between them, fast and precise. They called themselves the Alliance of the Broken, because every world among them had been broken once. And now they were done being afraid. As the fleet left Cathvar orbit, Emma stood on the bridge, staring at the endless black ahead. Somewhere out there was the Dramor homeworld, a fortress world built on blood and iron. She whispered, if we fail, there won't be anyone left to remember us. Baker heard her but said nothing. He only placed a hand on her shoulder. We won't fail, he said. Not while there's still one human ship flying. The heart of the enemy. After 3 jumps through hyperspace they arrived. Before them hung a massive planet surrounded by rings of shipyards, weapons platforms and burning moons. The Dramor homeworld. It was beautiful, in a terrifying way. Every surface glowed red like molten iron. Storms of lightning wrapped around the planet's surface. Warchief Jiare's voice boomed across every frequency. So, the Deathworlders come to die. Baker leaned forward. No. We came to finish what you started. Then he gave the command. All ships, engage. The final battle. The sky exploded with color. Tens of thousands of weapons fired at once. Beams of plasma, trails of missiles, arcs of lightning. The void became a storm of destruction. Human ships charged forward in tight formation, weaving between asteroids and defense grids. Their railguns pounded enemy cruisers, turning them into fireballs. The Dramor fought with monstrous rage. Their ships screamed through the radio with battle cries in languages older than Earth itself. Emma worked the communications board non-stop, relaying orders and rerouting signals as one Cathvar cruiser after another fell. Left flank collapsing. Hayes shouted. Redirect the drones. Baker barked. Keep the pressure up. A Dramor battleship locked onto the Vigilant Dawn. Its main cannon charged, a beam of white energy brighter than the sun. Emma's eyes widened. They're targeting us. Baker didn't flinch. Then fire everything we've got. The Vigilant Dawn unleashed its full arsenal, railguns, plasma torpedoes and nuclear shells. The beams crossed in the void, colliding mid-space in a blinding explosion. When the light faded, both ships were gone. Sacrifice. The shockwave threw Emma from her seat. The control room filled with smoke and alarms. Bridge is hit. Hayes shouted. Shields gone. Baker coughed, blood on his lips. He struggled to stand. Status of the fleet? Emma looked through the cracked window. Dozens of friendly ships were burning. The Alliance was breaking apart. She felt tears sting her eyes. We're losing. Baker pressed a code into the console with shaking hands. No, he said softly. Not yet. On the screen, a warning appeared. Automated core detonation sequence initiated. Emma turned to him in horror. You're going to blow the ship? He nodded. We'll take their command fleet with us. But you'll die, she cried. Baker smiled weakly. Someone has to remind them why you never call for help from a death world unless you're ready for the consequences. He handed her a small data drive. This has everything we learned about their tech. Get it back to Earth. Emma shook her head, tears falling. I won't leave you. Baker's tone turned soft. That's an order, Doctor. The fire that ended a war. Minutes later, the escape pod shot away from the Vigilant Dawn, carrying Emma and a handful of survivors. Through the small window, she saw the ship turn toward the Dramor flagship. Engines burning, weapons firing even in its last moments. Then the light came. Brighter than anything she had ever seen. The explosion rippled across space, vaporizing the Dramor command fleet, tearing through their defense ring, and setting their homeworld's upper atmosphere on fire. When the light finally faded, there was nothing left but silence. Aftermath. Weeks later, the survivors of the Alliance gathered on the ruins of a neutral station. The Dramor were gone. Their empire shattered. Emma stood alone, holding the data drive Baker had given her. Leary walked beside her, voice quiet. He saved us all. Emma nodded, eyes still on the stars. He saved everyone. Across the galaxy, broadcasts spread. The message was simple. The Deathworlders came. They fought. They bled. And they won. Epilogue. Months later, back on Earth, a new monument stood in the lunar listening station. A bronze statue of General Baker, standing tall with his gaze fixed on the stars. Every visitor read the same words engraved below his feet. When the galaxy called for help, Earth answered with wrath and mercy. Emma often visited it in silence. Some nights, she would look up at the stars and whisper, "We're still here, General." And somewhere in the endless dark of space, the echo of his final words seemed to linger. Tell them. Deathworlders don't start wars. They end them.